Welcome to the Bear Essentials. My name is DJ, and in this video we're going on an epic 4-day adventure into the backcountry of the Canadian Rockies. A land that is truly wild, home to grizzly bears, wolves, mountain lions, and many other large predators. My companion on this trip is longtime friend, outdoorsman, and fly fisherman, James. And because of how challenging the terrain is, there are some spots that rarely, if ever, see human footsteps. And the ultimate allure to us, many fish that have never yet seen humans. This would be a trip of a lifetime, and we had no idea what the gorge had in store for us. Arriving late last night, we just set up camp by the truck. We woke up to frost as it was surprisingly really cold, so we're just getting a hot breakfast before getting our fly gear ready. There's a path that sort of heads downstream, and here's where we get our first real good glimpse of the river. James points out a possible plan along the high ridge where we could possibly get down to the river. Keep in mind, we've only seen this area from topographic maps, so we don't really know what to expect. And when we finally did get down, what we saw exceeded anything we could imagine. The water was this turquoise blue, and the canyons rose right from the river's edge. This was going to be a great trip. But as the morning stretched on, we realized it might not be an easy trip.
This one's called an irresistible. We're going to pinch the barb at the back.
No takers.
So we didn't really get a single fish that morning. And it was probably because the water was cold or we were close to the access point. One of those excuses for sure. But all I'm saying is our luck did change when the weather started heating up and we got further downstream.
What a fish, man.
This is a cutthroat trout. It's the main species we're after here and really the only type of fish in this canyon.
Right, yes!
In fact, not too long before this, there was a historic 100-year flood. So we were really relieved to be catching fish this early. There had been some talk that maybe the fish would have been flooded out of the canyon, especially in between the waterfalls. Since the falls were all too big for the fish to leap, they get there by slowly moving downstream over years and years. But so far, this is a really good sign.
Oh, it's coming at me. Yeah! Oh! Tank!
What a unit! No way. See you, buddy. Thank you.
Nice. Yeah, dude. Yes!
Some of these backdrops were just so scenic, it was hard to believe they even exist. James is fishing here with a dry fly. It's probably the first thing to come to mind when anyone thinks of fly fishing. Casting something that mimics a fly that has landed on the water to either lay eggs or that has died and just is floating downstream on the water.
Picky fish, man. Picky fish.
Trout are very choosy in what they eat, so this type of fishing can be extremely tough, but also some of the most rewarding.
That's it. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh! Gets away. Man. Holy.
It's absolutely crushing to lose a fish that you worked so hard to trick into taking your dry fly.
Whew. Oh man, that feels good finally to get that on the dry.
And just the greatest feeling when you get that chance again and land on.
Yes, dude. Yes.
So after pushing a bit farther than we probably should have, we finally reached a waterfall and decided we had to turn back now. It was a great day, and we're only barely going to make it back before the sun sets and we could trade fishing stories by the fire. ate breakfast. I mean, there's still frost, but we were at least prepared. Slept in more layers and on our sleeping pads. Now it's time to pack for our trip down the canyon, and we're gonna bring climbing gear and all our backcountry stuff, as well as our fishing gear. We'll probably hike in with our waders a few kilometers downstream and a couple waterfalls to pass through. It's gonna be really cool. So we set off, and our big packs are filled with everything we're gonna need for the next few days, including filming gear, drone, climbing gear, and fishing stuff. The first leg of our journey will travel in our waders, just because the path leads sharply down to the water. We'll have to travel by way of river until we reach the first waterfall, and then figure out what to do from there. Now, although the terrain is beautiful, it gets a bit eerie at times. With the dense forest on one side and the sheer cliff on the other, we have to be really careful. Both of us are carrying bear spray, and we're making lots of noise as we travel, just so we don't startle any wildlife, which is just one of the many dangers out here to be mindful of. So we're a bit down our journey, and a few more kilometers to another rest point, which is a big bend down there.
Made it. Nice. First corner.
Little did we know, the next bend had something incredible waiting for us. These are bighorn sheep, and they're easily traversing the canyon on a seemingly impossible slope. And that's because their hooves are perfectly suited to terrain like this. They've got a concave shape with a rubbery, grippy inner sole and then a harder outer shell. So they provide the maximum amount of contact on the rocks, but also a good amount of stability. While they generally feed on grasses and shrubs, you could see these white streams and patches in the rocks. Those are minerals, essentially salt licks for them, which is crucial for their overall health. The ones with the big curled horns are called rams. Those horns can weigh up to 30 pounds each, and males can grow up to 300 pounds. This one here is just an adolescent. James brings up a really good point.
These guys here are probably our biggest danger. There's a bunch of rock fall and shale coming down. Gotta stay away from those cliff edges.
If we were fishing anywhere underneath, these rocks would just come down right on us. And people die every year, believe it or not, by rocks falling from bighorn sheep up above. We watch them for a bit and then say goodbye. We've got a lot of ground to cover, and the sun is starting to heat up fast. But we of course stop for a bit of fishing along the way.
Lost them?
And I'll say fishing and not catching, because apparently there's a big difference. Oh wait, actually no difference. We are both fishing and catching right now. And life is good.
Nice. Shaking hands.
Nice.
Oh, on the dry.
Nice, that's sick. Not long after, we get to the first of many falls. This is about as far as we made it the day before. And as you can see, the canyon walls go pretty much vertical here, so there's no real landing place to rappel down some of the further falls. And as far as we could see, it's just so steep we don't know if we'll be able to get back down around the corner. So this is pretty much where the completely inaccessible stretches of the river start. We decide to hike up and take the ridge. Now there's no real path here anymore except for this game trail that we found, and we're just gonna bushwhack along the ridge until we can at some point get back down. A sheer cliff over here, and we've got to keep pushing to get all the way to the falls. A few more kilometers because our plan changed. We're not going to be able to get down here. We'd rather push to the falls.
Could be stuck.
Could get stuck, yeah. James has the right idea while hiking in wet waders and shorts. I stubbornly have my full waders still on, in hopes of getting down to the river at some point and walking through the water again. But with every passing hour, it seems we're not able to make it down. And so I'm regretting my decision, but the momentum just keeps me going. I should also mention this gravel is extremely loose, and the video doesn't really do justice to exactly how sketchy this was. Any little slip and you just keep sliding and can't stop.
All right, so we made it to kind of fork in the road. We had to gain some elevation because the canyon walls were way too steep. So now we're up pretty high. We can't really get down without rappelling, and it's not the spot we really want to rappel. So we're gonna push forward and get to the falls. A few more kilometers. It's been a tough trek, especially in waders carrying the packs, but we're getting through, and it's so far a great time. It's definitely a challenge, but there's no real paths here. We're just following game trails. So super exciting.
For reference, this is about 4 to 5 hours into the trek, and we finally find a spot we could go down. With bodies exhausted and broken, we finally make it to what looks like a perfect site.
We're gonna set up a spot right over there.
But if you've ever done backcountry trips, you'll know that the work is not yet done. So I take a quick little bit of a rest, and then we get right back at it, setting up the tent, our sleeping pads, our sleeping mats, and then James gets to work on setting up a campfire, and I get to work harvesting firewood. It's funny to me, a backcountry trip like this is mostly just pure work, separated by these ephemeral moments of achievement for both what you've done and the places that you've brought yourself to. I think if I could only describe it in one word, then a life lived like this is rewarding. After exploring the big falls, we eventually made our way back to our campfire. And now we'd sit back and relax, look up at the stars, and plan our day tomorrow. We made it to the big falls, and tomorrow we would rappel them. Today is the big day. We are going to go and rappel the massive waterfall that's just downstream of us. Step one, we're bringing the drone and our ropes and seeing if we could find a good anchor point. The rope we have is about 200 feet, so it should be more than enough. This is an intimidating feat, and we have to be really careful and very, very smart about this because there's a massive risk. But this is the allure. Water that may never ever have been fished before, in an area only accessible to those willing to risk a rappel down these falls. We first fly the drone to see where our rope lands. There's an overhang below, so we need to get a visual on exactly where we're going to drop off when we rappel down. Now, we don't have an entire 200 feet, we actually only have half that because the rope has to be anchored around a sling. And this allows us to retrieve our rope at the bottom so we could take it with us further down and navigate any future falls so we don't get stuck in between. At first glance, it looks like the 100 feet are the absolute perfect amount. And from the drone all the way up, it actually looks doable. But then we notice a huge problem. While at first glance it looks like the rope is hitting the ground perfectly, we zoom out to get the full picture, and what we see isn't good. Remember, we can't see this with our eyes because of the overhang, but the drone reveals the entire story.
The rope's a bit short. We need to find another anchor point if we can.
James looks for any other safe anchor point we could find, but the big trouble is the rocks aren't trustworthy and any sturdy trees are 15 or 20 feet above the actual falls and set back a bit. And any closer ones have a really slippery rock which makes the whole thing unsafe. And it's at this moment where our entire plan goes down the drain. We don't know what to do. Could we leave the rope anchored here? Could we makeshift something? We discussed literally every option available. But one thing was for sure, we couldn't lose hope. After all, we had come so far along the ridge of this canyon, where few would ever trek to. What if we went back up the canyon, but this time by river? We could hike up and set up our tent along the unexplored bends of the river, where the canyon walls rise up hundreds of feet straight in the air, preventing any access by foot, unless you fly in by helicopter or follow the same steps that we were just making. This would be our way to truly untouched fishing, and wilderness that only rarely gets seen by human eyes. So we wasted no time at all. The new plan for the day was as follows. We'd pack up our tent and then get a quick breakfast into us. We'd travel as far as we could by river, which would be a little bit sketchy just on the slippery rocks and with our big packs. We'd be scouting for a campsite, but mostly we're going to be fishing our way up. These are spots that we might never see again. So as we mosey upstream, we'll throw our packs down at any spot that looks fishy and see what this adventure holds.
Oh, wow. A big antler bone.
After a few hours, we got to the first spot that we just couldn't resist casting a line in.
It's a nice fish.
And boy, were we rewarded.
It's a good one.
Wow, what a tank.
That is the guy came here for.
Thick boy. Notice the red markings under this fish's jaw? That's where the fish gets its name, the cutthroat trout. And this one is a beautiful wild fish. As with all these fish on this trip, we release them back to the wild to swim another day. And I like to think the fish gods sometimes bless us because of that.
Oh,
because I sure
missed.
got lucky with this next fish.
Oh, yes. 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 Dude, what a beauty.
Holy. It's probably one of my nicer fish ever. Yeah! Yes! Personal best. Wow.
Nice fish, dude.
Oh, that was amazing. What a fish.
As an example of how untouched and unpressured these fish were, one had snapped James's line a few minutes earlier. After letting it rest for a few minutes, he casted to the same spot, and he thinks it's the same fish.
Got him! Yes!
Man, he's got my other fly in his mouth.
Yes!
No way.
Yes.
Yes, retrieved. Truth be told, it was impossibly hard to make progress upriver. The fishing was just so good, sometimes we just stopped and had to dip our lines in with our packs on. And on almost every single cast we caught trout, and not just any trout, these were fish of a lifetime. This would be considered a small one for the trip, but the magic of this place made it so much fun. The average size trout was about 16 to 20 inches here, which are a really nice size for cutthroat trout and a great fight. We stalked them from high up vantage points, low down in the water, and everything in between. This was what we had dreamed of. I couldn't tell you the exact total amount of fish we caught, and that's probably just because we completely lost count. Eventually, we push forward. We finally make it to a spot where we could set up camp for the evening. And it's so perfect, it's beyond words. With a picturesque fishing run right in front of us and canyon walls that jut up hundreds of feet. And of course a sandy beach where the only footsteps are ours and the animals that call this place home. James is on firewood processing duty and I'm on campfire building. Campfires in the sand are the best because you could dig down and create a flow path, meaning it burns better with less smoke. Here's the back side of the fire pit, and then in the front side you'll see I'm building a reverse fire. Basically stacking all the logs in a crisscross formation and then lighting the thing from the top. The embers fall down and then relight it all from the bottom, and it just makes a really nice maintenance-free fire.
Combine the cold, in a pot, combine the cold water and the contents of the bag. Mix well, bring to a boil, stirring constantly. Reduce heat, simmer for 1 to 2 minutes.
Today was an incredible day, and although things didn't go as planned, and we had to turn back from rappelling the waterfall, we somehow found the most remote spots with the best fishing you could get. Tomorrow's our last day, and we're going to push farther upstream to see what that holds. We wake up to another gorgeous morning in the canyon. We'll take down our tent, have a nice breakfast and hot coffee, and start to pack up our bags for the mission upstream. Today we'll fish as far as we can before trying to find some way up and out. Our worst case scenario is we hike all the way back down to where the falls are, because we know we could get up there, and then all the way back along the ridge. But hopefully it doesn't come to that. While I'm having a morning coffee, James casts a line in, right from our campsite.
Yep, there he is.
Hang him on the bed. Cheated.
What a poacher.
It was about time now to put things back in balance. After all, we were having way too much fun this morning, and so we have to throw another big challenge in, finding our way back home. Now, it's one thing crossing rivers when you just have waders on. It's a whole nother story when you have a 60-pound pack on your back. Just one slippery rock is all it takes to go under and roll an ankle. Luckily, we pushed through all right. After a good way upstream, we realized there was truly no way up. We stopped our fishing early, hiked back, changed into hiking gear, and found a way up an extremely steep slope somewhere near our last camp. Now, we definitely weren't out of the woods at this point. We were back hiking on this diagonal slope, trying to get back on top of the ridge. But with the shrubs, loose ground, and deadfall, it just made for a grueling trek. But with just one foot in front of the other for a long while, we made it to the ridge top and could look on down on those glorious fishing spots which we had hit just earlier in the day. Just a few more hours of this now and we'd make it to the base camp.
All right, we've just made it back.
Finally.
There it is. Great rip backcountry.
Cheers, cheers.
Now this was another unforgettable trip and the kind we look forward to doing every year.
My back popping a bit.
Well, just maybe every year our bodies would hold up, at least. Thanks for joining our adventure. There's many more on the Bear Essentials page, which I think you'll love. I'm DJ with the Bear Essentials, and thanks for stopping by.